Hello and welcome to another edition of Luminar Coffee Break. I'm your host, Vanelli. Now, this is our Friday wrap-up, and joining me is my co-host, Angela Andrieux. Hello, Angela.
Hey, everyone. Good to see you, and happy Friday.
Good. So, Angela, what do we have planned for today?
So today is our weekly wrap-up, and we'll be going back through some of the edits and topics we covered earlier in the week. And for me, that means we're going to cover some light leaks and textures and how to enhance animal eyes.
Oh, that's awesome.
How about you, Vanelli?
All right. And then, and mine is how to add objects to a scene. That was one of them. And what was the other one? I'm trying to think.
You were going to go for the innovative AI interface.
That's it, the interface. Oh, that's right, because catalogs was the biggest hit when we've talked about this. So how about you kick us off? I'll share your screen.
All right. Excellent. So I have this beautiful image from one of our ambassadors. I think he's an ambassador. And I wanted to add a really beautiful, light, airy look to this. So I came to my templates, and I'm scrolling through the options here for this photo, and I landed on experimental. And these particular templates have some textures added to them with light leaks and lens flares and all sorts of other fun things that honestly I didn't think I would ever really use. But when I came across some of these light and airy portraits, I really thought they just made these portraits come alive and looked beautiful. So let me go ahead and show you my before and after, because this is a finished image that you're looking at right now. So there's the before. You can see it's a nice light and airy portrait. Nice light coming in from the side. I went ahead and added a template and then a few other edits, and this is what I came up with. Now, if we go back to the original template, which this is the one I used, Celebrate, there's the original. There's also burned film, which I think looks beautiful. And again, it's not something that would work for everything, but it works so beautifully with a portrait like this. So some of these are just, they're really cool, really unique, and you wouldn't use them often, but when they work, they just work. So I went and used Celebrate, and then I went into my edit. I added a vignette. I cooled down the highlights a little bit. We worked a little bit with our portrait details to smooth out her face a little bit and just even out the lighting, and a little bit of mystical, which is one of my favorites. So we can go ahead and go back to my history, and I'm going to go ahead and just pop back here to where we added the vignette. And go ahead and let that load up there. And this is where I landed. So just to show you where I went for some of those edits, I was here in the portrait tools, and I added a little bit of face light, and I went to my skin AI, and I smoothed out the skin just ever so slightly. And that template did a lot of that for me. So a creative edit that I did was adding mystical, one of my favorites. It just adds a really nice glow. And then make sure you go into colorize and warm up that glow. It just really melded well with this image. And then to finish things off, we went over here to our vignette. And that was the finished image. Now, if you wanted to play with other textures or modify this texture a little bit, you'd find that over here in local masking. You can see there's already a texture local mask added, and you can adjust the opacity of that. If you think it's maybe a little bit too much, you can pull that down, pull it back up. You can flip it around if you think that it would go better the other way. Completely up to you. You can turn it upside down. There's all sorts of things you can do. You can go into advanced settings, change your blend mode, or even click on load texture and load up a completely different option. It's up to you, but it's a really fun place to start. These templates are a great creative tool to get your juices flowing and take your art to someplace that you might not have expected.
Wow, that's great, Angela. And so I liked how the texture was already added to it, right?
Yes.
Now, could you explain it? If I were to add my own texture and give you my look, or my template, what happens with that texture?
So if you gave me a template that already had a texture added, that template becomes embedded, or that texture becomes embedded in that template, and that would then load up. If you gave me that template file and I applied it to another image, that texture would then be applied as well.
Yeah, but keep in mind though, that let's say if you have your own special texture that you really love, and I put it in one of my templates, the other person can't use it in other images, only with that whatever. In other words, whenever they apply that particular template, that texture can be applied. that doesn't mean that they can
Exactly.
just take that texture out of that template and apply it to another template. So
Correct.
that was very good, Angela. All right, I'm going to share my
Thanks.
screen real quick. Excuse me. All right, so here we are. This was a shot that we absolutely love. We pulled this from our user manual. Late at night, we were coming up with what to use for the texture overlay. No, for the Augmented Sky.
Augmented Sky.
And Angela and I landed on this one. So here's before, and here's after. So let's come over here. And what I want to do is, let's start from the beginning. So under Edit, I'll come over and start fresh with the original. So here's the original image, which is a very good image, but we're going to make it look a little bit better. So with templates, I'm going to come up to the top, and we're going to let AI, or Luminar AI, give us suggestions on what it feels would be a really cool looking addition to this. And Crack of Dawn is what I came up with. So look at that. I love what it did with that one click, before and after. It just added to it. So now I'm going to come over to Edit, and before I continue with adding an Augmented Sky to this, let's come over here to the enhancements. I'm going to dial this down a little bit right there, and maybe bump up the blacks just a little bit. Enrich the blacks. Yeah, there we go. All right, so now that I have the image ready, now I'll come over to the Creative Tools. And with the Creative Tools, Augmented Sky, and these birds. I'm falling in love, like I said before, with adding these birds to the scene. Now that's just 3 of them. Here's one that'll add a whole lot of them. Here we go. Now we have to make a decision. The birds are small, so it looks like they're further away. So if we increase the size of the birds, it's going to give it a look like, or as if she's like commanding the birds to come to her. And so the birds are closer to her. So I'm going to maneuver them into place. Right about there's good. And I press enter just to lock it in. Now, here the birds are actually going around her rather nicely. This is where we would use the mask. If the bird, oh, here's right here, perfect. So these birds right here, they're going behind her, but I think it's a little distracting. So we'll click on the mask, and I want to click on erase at 100% opacity. And I'm just going to remove these birds here. Notice it doesn't affect the sky. It's just replacing and removing the birds. And I want to remove these birds over here in the corner. There we go. And we're set. So that's how we can just add a little extra, what's what I'm looking for? The extra value to the image. So we don't necessarily have to, totally revamp the entire image. Just by adding those birds to the scene, it changed the whole look and feel of the actual photo. So
I'd say it changed the story. I mean, the story of the story that had her standing up on the cliff, told one thing, but then you have her calling up these birds. It adds a huge sense of drama and just, gives a completely different slant to the story.
Great. And then people question you, and they say to you, well, were those birds really there? Just, yeah, we were on a microphone, and we sent down to the assistant, I cue the birds, and the birds flew up, and the birds took. You think I'm kidding? You joke with your friends like that, and have a serious face. Trust me, they're gonna go, wow, you did all of that. they have no clue.
Well, the saying that I really like is, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with something else.
Yeah. But overall, like you said, I like this. And it's just a different way of adding it. All right. So what else do you have for us?
So the other image that we worked on this week was enhancing animal eyes. And let me go ahead and pop back to my catalog and find that image. See, I was too entranced watching you edit that image that I didn't pull up my image while you were working. So, so we've got this gorgeous big cat by another one of our ambassadors. And let me show you the before. It's a great shot. It's sharp. It's beautiful, but it's a little bit dull. With the help of a single template and then a little bit of work on some details, the structure and the eyes, we were able to really make this photo come alive. So let me go ahead and walk you back through that. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my edit tab, history, and let's just step back to the original and go to templates. And it's suggested in the For This Photo section, the Savannah collection, and Warming Sun looks awesome on this image. I honestly could leave this there and call this good and done and move on, but I want to do a couple of things. I want to bring out the details in the eyes, and since our portrait tools are human aware, they don't always recognize animal eyes. Sometimes they do, but it's not reliable. So you need to have some tools in your toolbox to make sure those animal eyes look amazing. So what we did was we went over to our edit tab and into essentials. Now I'm going to add a little bit of global structure here because I just want to improve the midtone contrast and a little bit of the detail that we have going on here. So I'm going to pull that up to the right. And you can see that's just bringing out some of the detail here in the grasses in the foreground and really brought out some of those spots in the fur. I think that looks great. Now I'm going to go to the details tab here, and you can see that our template added a little bit of details. What I want to do is use this particular tool specifically for the eyes. So I'm going to go ahead and reset the details. Then I'm going to zoom in to, let's go to 100%, so we can really take a good look at the eyes. And so we'll go ahead and pull up that small details a little bit and pull up our medium a little bit more. And you can see right now it's affecting the entire cat. We're going to use our brush here in a moment, so these details are just affecting the eyes. So right now, pay attention just to the eyes and what is being affected there. I'll bring up my large details just a little bit. It doesn't need a whole lot there. And then I'll grab my local masking tool and in the paint mask, and make sure I'm in the paint mode. I'll make my brush a bit smaller here using the bracket keys on my keyboard, and then just brush this in right over the eyes. Give that just a second. Spinning beach ball, oh boy. All right, so there we go. Now those details are just affecting the eyes. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the mask, and we can turn off this tool before and after, and you can see how that brought out so many of those little details in the eyes. Now I still feel like the eyes are a little bit dark, so we can go over to our local masking and add basic. And I'm gonna go ahead, actually, let me go back one more step here, go back to my details. I wanna copy that mask that I made. So I'm gonna go to the ellipses tool, hit copy, and now I'm gonna go back to my local masking into that basic tool that I selected, into the ellipses, and click paste. Now any adjustments I make to this local mask are gonna be the exact same area that I painted in on the details tool. Nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull up my exposure just a tiny bit, wake up those shadows a little, and then we can pull the AI structure up for even a little bit more depth. So now if we turn that off and then back on again, you guys seeing the difference? It's not popping up on my screen.
I just did.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, so that makes a huge difference in lighting up some of those shadows. You can see a little bit more under those hooded lids a little bit. I think it's just gorgeous. So now we can go ahead and zoom back out, fit to screen. And we've got this gorgeous cat portrait, whereas the eyes are just the center. They draw you in, and you can see that that cat is hungry and something's about to become lunch. So there's the before.
Awesome. Now the other option, of course, is to have your least favorite assistant run out there with a reflector and bounce light into the eyes of the wild animal. Yeah, no.
Oh my gosh.
So, well, that worked out really good. All right, Angela. It's funny. Pat made a comment. Let me pull this up real quick. And thank you, Pat. She said she liked the idea that you mentioned about the texture on the layer, that she didn't realize you could manipulate that. So that was really cool. Yes. That the texture's on its own layer. Well, that's awesome. Yeah. And I liked how you added and showed people how to do that little extra copy of the mask, so you don't have to redo it again and paste it.
Yes.
So little
yeah, that's such a handy tool.
Good, little extra nuggets of information there. All right, so what do I have here? Let me pull this up. All right, so for this now, we were discussing the user interface. Now I'll briefly go through this, and then we'll get to the nut and bolt, which everyone is asking about catalogs. There are three ways you can use Luminar. You could use it as a standalone program. You could use it as a standalone program like we are right now. You could use it as a Lightroom or a Photoshop plugin. You can also use it strictly as a single image editor. And for that, you would come over here and edit single images. So once you edit or add a single image, we'll use my nephew again. You add it to here. It'll be applied up, well, I already have it on here, but it'll be applied to the single image edit up here, and it won't be added to the actual catalog, all right? So those are the three ways we could use Luminar. Now, let's get to the nuts and bolts that everyone keeps asking about, and that's catalogs, all right? So here we are with your catalog. Now, let me see if I can pull this up here. I'm so sorry. I have me, I have Angela. Yep, I don't see my, I'll pull myself up here then. Here's the thing with catalogs. A catalog is nothing more than a database. That's the nuts and bolts of your Luminar edits. So protect the catalog at all cost. Now I'm going to show you, let me pull some in here. When I say show and explore, this right here, that's the catalog that you're going to make sure you protect it and make sure nothing happens to this. These other three folders can be replaced. If you're on a Mac, for the Mac OS, you have a fourth folder, and that's your history. So for Mac users, protect that history folder and protect this Luminar folder or file because that right there is what's going to hold all of your edits. If for whatever reason, let's say you pull up Luminar and the previews are not looking as good as they should, go back in and delete the previews. It'll regenerate the previews for you to make them look better. All right? Now, where should we store our Lightroom, our Luminar catalog? Like we mentioned before in Lightroom, and when Lightroom first came out, you had a decision to make. Do you use one catalog or multiple catalogs? Luminar is similar in the fact that where you have a choice. You can use a single catalog or you can use multiple ones. But where do we store it? The default is to store it in your pictures folder. So when you install Luminar, right here, Luminar AI catalog, this is the default where the program stores your Luminar catalog. I personally, again, this is personal, I created my own Luminar AI catalog, and here is where I store my catalogs. Now, the reason why I do that is we've already said inside here, there's all these other folders. Well, if I double click on the cache folder, all the images are going to be in this cache folder or the previews folder. So if you're the type of person who added everything in your pictures folder to your Luminar catalog, every folder in this folder is going to be added, or every subfolder in this folder is going to be added to that catalog, which means any of these preview images, well, that one doesn't have one, any of the preview images will be added to that catalog also. So that means your catalog is going to be bloated with images that don't need to be in there. So if you keep it in the pictures folder, just make sure that when you select photos, don't select your Luminar catalog. It'll be like a mirror effect. It just mirroring what you already have in there. All right? By the way, Angela, do you have one or multiple catalogs, you yourself?
I have multiple for different projects, but as a photographer, I actually My home base is Lightroom. I prefer to use Luminar AI as a plugin. But in the work that I do for Skylum and for the different presentations I do, I prefer to keep separate catalogs because they get so large and cumbersome. I like to be able to go to a certain catalog for a specific project and have everything I need for that project available to me there.
Okay. Now for myself, let me pull this up here. I'm taking behind the scenes of my actual. Look at this. So you're seeing all of my folders on my photography drive. So here I have adult models. I have children models. I have and when I put underscore, the reason why I put underscore here is because it shoots it up to the top of the list. And then I have different people I've worked with or cruises I've gone on and so on. I've added those as folders. Down here, let me get to the bottom. This sports, almost there. Here we go. So the sports folder right here really should have an underscore. Because when I deal with sports, I have club, college, high school, and then I have pro sports. The kayaking was for the Canadian Olympic team. So in here, I would love to have just one catalog strictly for sports, one catalog for all the models. It could either be adult models and then children models, or make it one huge catalog. Now, the pros and cons behind that. If I have all my images in one spot, I can easily go through a search and find the image that I need. If I have them separated in the catalogs, then I'll have to open up that individual catalog. We'll use Erica. Megan is one of my examples. I photographed Erica so many times. I think hers is like the largest. And I put it under adult. I don't know why. So I've been photographing her since she was 5 years old. So let's see, where's Erica? Here we go. So here's Erica Megan. So here are some of the images that I have on this system here. There's archive ones I have, of course. But from here, I photographed her for homecoming, so that was personal. Then I photographed her for some modeling stuff, which was for paid shoots. So really, for hers, because I photographed her so much, I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to put her into my system. So she's kind of a jack of all trades in there. So I have a difficult time, like her grandmother passed away a little over a year ago. For me to try to find her grandmother's photos was a nightmare. Now, if I stuck to what I did originally, have Erica's family images off to a different folder, and then all the professional stuff that she's done or her sports photos separately, I could have found it in one spot. So, and this is entirely up to you. You decide how you want to organize your hard drives, and then you can organize your catalogs based on that. All right? How is that, Angela?
Works for me. I think that's a great system to go by. And, to know how you want to keep things on your hard drive first is a really big step, whether you want to organize by subject, I organize by date, but I know that doesn't work for everybody. So you figure out what system you want to use, and then you can catalog based on that. And keep in mind, the larger your catalog is, the more taxing it is to your computer to run it. So if your computer is super high powered, it's not going to have a problem with a really large catalog. If you're using a little bit older machine, or it doesn't have like the highest specs, you would definitely get better performance from Luminar by having smaller catalogs rather than one enormous catalog.
Okay, but for the user manual, how many images do we have in that catalog?
Oh, somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000.
Yeah. So and we that was on. We left it on Dropbox, right? We left it on Dropbox, and it was so cool because you're in California and I'm in Florida, and here we are sharing a catalog, and all of Angela's edits I could see on my machine, and it was really cool going back and forth. So now keep in mind, you can't open the same catalog. So we couldn't open, I made a copy of her catalog, did my routine, and then put it back, and she did the same thing. So it's not a network option. It's not like I could put it on my machine and watch in real time which would be so cool. Watch in real time her doing all these edits. So that was just one way. Like I said, that was on Dropbox. We prefer to put your catalog on your fastest hard drive. If it's on your fastest hard drive, you'll be a better response. But 5,000, we had no problem, right?
Nope.
Speed-wise.
No, I mean there were one or two of the really large images, especially from some people who had shot with the Sony RAW files that are 40 to 60 megapixels. That it take a moment or two longer to render and pull down from the cloud, but it wasn't untenable. It was very doable.
Awesome. Well, that sounds great. Well, hey Angela,
Yep.
this is awesome. Now
Yes.
coming up next week, we have a whole week worth of coffee breaks we're going to be scheduling for you, and our goal is to try to
Yep.
get them out to everyone in advance, right?
Yes. Yeah, we're going to try to get those posted later today, if not first thing tomorrow, and we'll make sure we get those ready for you, and so you can click on them, get reminded whether you're watching them directly via YouTube, whether you're coming in from Facebook via the link. We'll make sure you get the information ahead of time.
Awesome. And how you can help us, if you don't mind, please give us that thumbs up. It shows our producers that you like it. And most importantly, if you come across anybody in any of the forums that are having issues and you know the answers from watching these shows, please share the answer to them and invite them along to watch. All right?
Yes, definitely.
Well, hey guys, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you at the next coffee break.
Bye, everyone.